Good. There's a few things that I want us to work on today. We want to get some greater power into the outer hip region. And we may have been more sedentary here recently. And so we need to engage some muscle structures. We need to open up the inner thigh. So we're going to go through some wide position squatting poses in order to create our action. And what I want you to do is to turn so that your feet are going to be wide apart, and so much wider than hip distance, nice and wide apart. And your feet are on the same surface. You've got room for your body to bend forward. And we make sure we have a great arch in our foot. And if our knees bend, the knees would bend in the direction the toes are pointed. That's a good idea. But the first part of this is a hamstring release. We're going to get the weight back at our heels, and we're going to tighten up our thighs and pull in the core. And the thigh tightness and the core engagement is going to protect our other body parts. So we're going to lengthen that spine with that core engagement. We're going to tighten our thighs, and we're going to bend only at the hips. Now the low back needs to remain swaying toward the front of the body as we bend. And there is a limit to our bend. The hamstring will tell us when we reach that point. We don't want to go so much that our upper or lower back begin to round. We want to keep lengthening through the front of the body. And we will feel a resistance in the back of the leg, the hamstring region, as we continue to lengthen. We're just going to hold that a little bit, and that thigh tightness is engaging and telling the back of the legs to let go. But now we're going to let our knees bend and bring the elbows onto the knees, and it becomes much easier to lengthen the spine. We just pull our chest forward, and that tractioning position is good for decompressing the spine. We've lost the stretch in the back leg with the bend of the knees, but we can find it again by simply tilting ourselves a little bit. And we find that there's quite a pleasant stretch potential there. You don't have to go any further than you want, and you're pulling your spine nice and long. But we can also push the feet and the knees outward gently as we bring the hips down, and see if we can bring the hips down so the hip and the knee are about the same height. That may or may not be possible. We can switch back and forth between those, lifting up again, stretching into the back of the leg as we continue to elongate our spine. And then once more, sinking hips down to about knee height, knees and feet pushing outward. We'll feel the outer hip. And then once again, we lift the hips up into a stretch in the back of the leg. We may feel a little loosening as we keep doing these actions. And we're going to bend the knees partially, put our hands to our knees, bring the chest part way up. Don't come all the way up at first. Pull in your belly, and with that engaged, you can lift the rest of the way. Because when we're bent forward for long periods of time, it has an effect on our blood pressure. I don't want us to hop all the way up and feel woozy as a result. And for just a moment, step the feet closer together. And so we felt that, some elongation, some hamstring stretch, some outer hip action. But we're not yet done with that sequence of events. We're going to engage a little bit more. So let's return to the wide position. Be sure you have a really good arch as you're stepping out the feet wide. And just like we did the first time, we're going to tighten up our thighs, elongate, and core pulled in. We're going to bend at our hips, keeping the low back swaying toward the belly, and just to the point where the back of the leg begins to notice as we maintain our length. So there should be no sensation of negative in the low back region, nothing extreme in the hamstring stretch. We're trying to keep the thighs activated, the core engaged. So we may feel about the same as we did the first time. But once more, we're going to let the knees bend, elbows to the knees, and we pull the body forward. And so that's a very nice action for the spine. Now in this sequence, this next action, your hips can be lower and it's more difficult. Your hips can be higher and it's a little less difficult. But what we're going to do, once we adjust to the position we want to be in, we're going to take our left hand and bring it in the direction of the floor. And we're even going to put our right hand on the knee and lift the right shoulder up, or if we're comfortable, we're going to reach the right arm up above the left arm. So the chest is pulling toward the front of, or away from the hips, I should say. The hips are high or low, shoulder above shoulder, stretch, deep breath, and then we return to the elbows on the knees and we pull forward again. And we're going to duplicate on the other side, so the hips can be low or high. Right hand goes down, the left hand could go to the knee, lifting the left shoulder up, or the left arm can reach up toward the ceiling, hips high or low, chest pulling away from the hips, breathing deeply. Could feel very different, one side versus the other. And then we'll bring elbows to the knees, pull forward. And then hands to the knees. We come part way up, belly tight. And then we come the rest of the way up. And we step the feet together again. And we just take another little bit of a breather. So we're starting to feel some changes, some activation, also known as fatigue, happening in the legs. And we still got one more bit that we can go through that will really help the leg structure to strengthen it and to release some of the tension that we have. And so we're ready to again, so just a brief break from each one. We take our feet wide yet again. And we get a good arch. And we lengthen, chest lifting, belly pulling in, thighs contracted, tipping forward at the hips, front of the body remaining long. A little bit of stretch here in the back of the leg. Breathing deep. And so we just hold this hamstring stretch, the spine elongated. And now we're going to let our knees bend and those elbows come to the knees. And we pull forward. And here again, hips high would be an easier experience. You want more intensity, hips go lower. But all of us push our feet and our knees out, away from each other. And then with your right arm, just reach it forward like there's, something you really want right there. Just stretch that arm. You will feel the right side react to this. Breathe deeply. And then the elbow comes onto the knee, and we lengthen. And then we're going to take that left arm, and we're just going to reach it forward and breathe deeply. And you will feel the left side. Keep those knees separated outward, breathing deeply. And the left elbow comes back, and I bet you can anticipate the next one. Yeah, both arms reaching forward, pulling like, there's something you really want right there. Take a deep breath in. And then hands to the knees, lifting part way up. Belly pulls in tight, and we can come up the rest of the way. And then we probably feel like we've activated those legs a little bit, and that is good. Now we're briefly going to sit, and we're eventually coming onto our side because I've got some things planned for our shoulders. So if you want to sit your hips up on something, that's fine. We won't be here very long. We'll just sit for a moment. And by the way, if you don't have a bolster, a couch cushion works really great as a replacement bolster. Books, phone books, if those were things anymore, we could use in place of blocks. And so, our legs are feeling it, but I want to give us a nice workout. Remember, I want you to adapt things. I want you to make things adjust to you. And depending on what we're going through, we may have to decrease the activity or adapt or completely avoid something. For the shoulders right now, let's just roll them forward and up and then back and down. And there's a target muscle I have in mind for the shoulders. It's associated with stability in the shoulder, and it's actually underneath the shoulder blade. And it's a muscle called serratus anterior. We'll roll one way, we'll go the other way, back and up, forward and down. And it's a muscle that does many things, but one of the things, and what we're focused on, is the way it moves our shoulder blade away from the middle of our body, away from the spine. Let's turn the arms in and turn the arms out so we're thoroughly warming up the shoulder. We got some nice heat coming from the effect that we did in our legs. And that's good. That's a good warm-up. Now, here's how I want us to create the action, because it's going to duplicate a little bit of what I'm going to have us do on the floor here in a moment. I'm just going to take my hand to my shoulder. Now, my arm could be forward or 45 degrees, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it out to the side of me. So there's the arm touching my side, and the arm is coming up. And I've got the elbow bent for good reason. I don't want to overstress the nerve structure. I want to keep my body in the center, but I want to reach that elbow outward, as if I'm trying to touch an elevator button or something and keep my hands from being contaminated. So it's very useful in life, learning to reach. And so you get a little bit of movement, and it may be unclear as to what muscle's doing it. And don't let your body lean as you're touching. Just stretch. And the contraction might be felt right in here. That's the area where the serratus anterior, like these little fingers of muscle, attached to the ribs, pretty much under the shoulder. You may feel some interesting stretches or sensations, and some people feel a bit of nerve reaction because the nerve structure is also being stretched. And then we'll let that arm relax down, and we'll warm up the other side. So we have our hand to the shoulder. Now, I don't want to be forward or 45 degrees. I want to be the arm right at the side and coming outward to about the height of the shoulder. And then we reach. Now, you're going to feel different one side versus the other. That's almost always the case. So one side you'll be able to catch on to the feeling, the other side, maybe you're not really sure. Maybe your body's doing something completely different. It's really hard to catch ourselves in the act of making a change in which muscle group we modify and we compensate without a thought process happening. It's just the body trying to take care of us. Okay, so we've done that several times. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to recline on our side. So we're going to come out of the seated position. And if I'm asking you to do something, it becomes uncomfortable, you can come back to the seated position and do it. But I think a lot of people are pretty fine with the side position for the serratus. We're going into a side planking lift, but in a very modified way. So now our knees are going to be down, and our arm is going to be right here. And it's really important that we have the arm positioned so it is directly under our shoulder. All right, so that shoulder is right over the elbow. And the first thing, we're just going to sink down in a way that lets that shoulder come near our earlobe. And we're going to push the elbow down. We're going to take this other arm and we're just going to stretch it up toward the ceiling and push the elbow that's on the floor down. And then we're going to relax and sink and sway and sag. And we got to keep that elbow just about right under the shoulder. And then we do it again. We push and we take the opposite arm. It stretches up and we push. We're trying to lift up, breathing. But right now my leg weight is staying down on the floor. This is just happening in the chest and the shoulder region. We sink down again. And then once more, we're pushing to lift. We take the arm. We stretch. We breathe. And then we relax. And we're going to switch the side. Okay, so we come up. And now we're going to do side 2. Now the second side, here again, we're resting so that the weight is on the elbow and the shoulder is directly over. I don't want it forward or any other position. It's as right under my shoulder as I can. The knees are forward. That just helps keep me in line. And we're going to sink down, try and get the shoulder near the ear. We're going to press. We're going to take this upper arm. And we're going to stretch and pull ourselves a bit away. And then we're going to sink down again. Press, lift the chest, stretch ourselves upward. And again, we sink down. And we press and we stretch upward. And that's good. And that's a good sequence to continue to use as we create the action, but I'm going to show you the next part of it. It intensifies things just a little bit. So we're going to come back onto the side, first side, elbow down, under that shoulder, direct straight line down. And this time we're going to create a little bit of a lift. And you could just do the arm part. You don't have to lift up. So we sink down, we start to press, we take the arm, we lift. And then we just push enough and we stay on the knees and we lift the hips up and the upper arm is helping to stretch us upward. And then the hips come down and we sink down again. Now if that was too rough, then just don't do the lifting part. We press, we take the arm up, we stretch, and then we can do the lift. That adds just more weight on. And hips come down and then we sink into it a bit. And again we press. We stretch, we lift, and then down, and then down. Okay, well, that's great. Let's do our other side now, switching back and forth. So there's some fatigue built into this, but we want to be comfortable. So we get, again, always got to get that arm right over, shoulder right over that elbow. So we sink down. We press, we stretch, and then we could also lift. Knees staying down, hips down, arm down. Again, we sink, we press and stretch. We could lift, and then down, and sink. And then we, third time, press, stretch, and potentially lift. And then we come down. Good. let's go back to that first side. We got one more potential action for this. Although, as I said, you do not have to follow suit. You could just sit and do a little bit more of the arm stretch. You could do the first part of it, second part of it, but here we have another option. So I get my elbow under it. I'm going to create a change in my leg posture. So this upper leg is going to be forward of me, and the lower leg is going to stretch out straight. All right, so the lower leg is straight, and this upper leg is actually going to be in a rather odd position. Good thing we warmed up our hips, so I've got to be able to press my foot down. It's really going to help me. And remember, you don't have to lift up at all. You can have those knees bent, but we're going to sink. We're going to press and stretch, and then with the help of this leg, we're going to lift up, and then we can just somewhat lighten the pressure of our leg's assistance from us if we felt that was a good idea. Hips come down all the way down into the sink position. And then we press, stretch. With the help of that leg, we can come up, breathing deeply. And then we come back down. How much this front leg helps us at first a lot, and then we can just sort of lessen the pressure if we wanted to intensify. So we're sinking, again, I keep having to reposition my arm. Press, stretch, and then the lift, and then however much pressure I want to take on the arm. And then we come down. And we're going to switch sides. Now, if you were thinking, wait a minute, I'm feeling some action in my abdominal muscles. Yep, fooled you. This is also a core workout, not just a shoulder workout. Okay, good. Let's switch sides. Okay. So now on side two. And so the precision is to get ourselves where that arm has the shoulder right over that elbow. Very important part. The upper leg's going to be forward. The lower leg is going to be straight in line with us. And in fact, the upper leg is going to be positioned in such a way that I can use it to assist me in the lifting. And we're going to sink down. We're going to press. We're going to stretch. And we're going to use that leg to help us come upward. And then we'll put whatever pressure we want on that arm. And then we'll come down all the way and sink. And just don't, reposition the arm if you can't quite get it right. And so we press and stretch, and you might want to leave it at that, and then lift, and then reduce the leg, help a little bit, and then we come down, and we can do that one more time. So we're sinking, press, stretch, lift with the assistance of the leg, and then the leg is just helping a little less. And then down we go. And boy, that's enough of that. So let's come in a position now where we can be on our back.